What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Rosecraft Blades Loosahatchie Jack, and this is a pattern we've actually already checked out on the channel, but since then they've released a couple new iterations, and thanks to the Rosecraft pass around group, had the opportunity to take a look at the Stag version, so thought it was worth revisiting. Now, if you're a fan of the Loosahatchie Jack pattern, I feel like they've released a lot of really solid cover options since they released this model. So a lot of great ones to choose from. For me, I think the Stag is the best looking of the bunch, but it is worth noting that Stag as a material is a little bit more costly than something like natural bone or wood covers. And so that's reflected in the price of this configuration as well. You can get this one for $79.99 over on their website, which of course I'll make sure to link to in the description of the video. If you'd like to look it up yourself, you can search for RCT010 is the general model designation for the Loosahatchie Jack, and then there's a couple different letters at the end to kind of denote the different cover options. So the Stag version is -STG. And so the pattern itself is modeled off after a Barlow, and some super traditionalists would argue that this isn't a Barlow at all because it lacks the elongated bolster. So most standard Barlows traditionally have a bolster that's a third of the length of the handle. Now there are some exceptions with something like the Granddaddy Barlow, which is a little bit larger, and the third is a little bit extreme on such a large knife, and so that one has a quarter length bolster similar to what you'd find on this version. So whether or not you want to classify this as a Barlow or not really doesn't matter, because it takes all of the rest of the inspiration from our handle shape, our sizing, that clip point blade from the standard Barlow pattern, so you kind of know what to expect outside of the elongated bolster there. Now the knife itself has a 3.625 inch closed position, which of course equates to our handle length, and so for me that's a full 4-finger grip. One of the nice things about the Stag, and there's a lot of nice things about the Stag, but one of the really nice things about the Stag is that it's a little bit thicker than the previous cover options. So I find that it does fill the hand out a little bit better, a little bit more comfortable. And because of all of the random kind of peaks and valleys and just kind of the natural nature of the cover, there's a lot of texturing here as well to give you a nice secure grip that really fills out the palm nicely. And so do like that a little bit better than those other cover options. You can see it still goes flush with the bolster, so it kind of ramps down to that bolster so everything's flush and clean, but it thickens out right after that for thicker handles. And that's been the case with all of the Stag handles that I've handled from Rosecraft on both this model and other models, and so definitely something you can expect if you're going with the Stag configuration. Now they pair that 3.625 inch handle with a 2.875 inch D2 clip point style blade. Now not the most dramatic swoop on here, it's almost kind of a straight drop down, but you do have Andy's signature swedging at the tip. Really nice blade shape here. And one thing that I love with a clip point is a long pull. I'm not sure what it is, but I definitely prefer long pulls on clip points over a nail nick. I think it just fits seamlessly and looks really great here as well. Again, D2 steel, we have Rosecraft on our tang stamped there. If we flip over to the Powell side, we have Andy Armstrong's maker mark as well as D2 steel, and then that model designation, which is again RCT010-STG. And so that brings our overall length up to 6.5 inches. This Stag version is just a hair heavier at about 3.3 ounces, but still not ultra heavy or unwieldy or anything like that. And like I said, really great ergos on this one. Now, as far as the fit and finish, always know exactly what you're gonna get out of Rosecraft. They do a wonderful job. This one has super smooth walk and talk, great acoustics as well. So I'll stop talking while we open and close this a couple times. But I'd say the pull is about a 6.5, which is a little bit heavier than we've seen from some of the previous models. And that's definitely my preference, but it is just slightly heavier than some. And so if you prefer a lighter pull, this one may be a little on the heavy side. Still not a nail breaker or anything, but let's stop talking and open this a couple times. So once again, great acoustics, super smooth. You can see it jumped into all three positions really naturally, and nice even pull from our close to our half and our half to our fully deployed. Very consistent pull weight all the way across the board there. Plenty of access to that nail nick as well, and it allows you to get a little bit further to our long pull as well. It does allow us to get a little bit further from the pivot, which does lighten that pull just a little bit. If you pull it back here where the nail nick might have lived, if it were a nail nick, it is going to be a little bit heavier because you're closer to our pivot point, and so that does help with that pull weight just a little bit there. Again, about a quarter length bolsters here, nice fluted bolster, perfectly flush with our covers. And that's another thing that they did really well with the fit and finish. It's actually super impressive with a natural material like this, because I already mentioned those peaks and valleys. That's going to be different on every single one. Each one's almost like a fingerprint, unique to that specific piece of Stag. And so you can see that our pins, nickel silver pins, are completely flush no matter where it lands on those Stag covers. And so you don't have them where they're set in too deeply, where they end up accumulating gunk. You don't have them where they're sticking out, where there's a chance that those get caught on things over time and form cracks in your Stag. Everything's completely flush on both our show side and our pal side. So just really nicely done. You can also see the uniqueness as we look from the show to the pal side. So on our main cover here, we have this beautiful scar that runs the length of that cover. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but I'm calling it a scar. A little bit deeper than all of the other peaks and valleys, and I think it looks great because it's so much character. Absolutely love that. But if we turn to our pal side, very different texturing, and it doesn't have that same scar. And so you can see where that uniqueness kind of starts to come into play here, because despite both being obviously the same material, we have very, very different layouts of both on one side to the other. And so I absolutely love that about Stag. Definitely makes it worth the extra cost to me. I think it looks great. Have that nice marbling on the sides as well, giving it that natural texture. And then as far as the rest of the fit and finish goes outside of our covers, we have no steps or gaps or anything like that on our springs or liners or to our covers. Great termination of the spring itself, and then perfectly down the center for that blade. So like I said, they always knock it out of the park. You kind of know what to expect with Rosecraft. With that being said, I did want to mention, for those that stayed tuned in to the end of this video here, definitely tune into the next Rosecraft video, because one of the benefits of being in this Rosecraft pass around group is occasionally we'll get to keep some of the models, some of the samples that they send out. And so if my count is correct, that's going to be the next one that I receive. And if that's the case, we're allowed to do whatever we want with them. I think a majority of the channels that are getting them are going to be doing giveaways, although other channels may do other ways to promote their channel, or Rosecraft, whether that's sending it out to other channels, keeping it to make additional content, whatever the case may be. But I'm going to be giving mine away. And so like I said, I believe that'll be the next video if my count is correct. And I'm not going to announce it in the title or the thumbnail, because I got burned on the last one, to be honest. The person that ended up winning was actually a multi-accounter that we found out after the fact that had 40-50 accounts that they've been using to enter giveaways on several different channels, not just mine. And we're able to confirm that the winners are using the same exact address. And so we found a way to identify those accounts. So gonna make sure that doesn't happen again. But just for the sake of making sure this goes to a regular viewer, someone who's a fan of the channel or a fan of Rosecraft, I'm not going to be announcing it in any other way outside of talking about it in that video. So the only way to know about it ahead of time is if you watch this video to the end. So figured I would mention that here. But let me know what you think of this knife down in the comments of the video. As usual, if you enjoyed the video, definitely consider liking, commenting, or subscribing, checking out some other content. All that stuff helps the channel out a ton, closing in on 10,000 subscribers. So thank you all for those of you who are subscribed, and I hope you have a great one. Take care.